Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I know lately it's been a lot of helmet cam POV footage as I'm getting ready for the upcoming season, but we got another tech video for you guys today. Because getting ready for the season also means that we got to get the race bike ready for the season, and that means we're going to be doing some tasteful upgrades to this thing. 450s these days absolutely rip, but we do need to get a little bit more horsepower out of this thing because sometimes those pro national conditions can be super deep and gnarly in qualifying, and you want a little bit more horsepower. Plus, if you want to get off the gate and get anywhere inside the top 10, you got to get some more ponies out of these things. So my very first thing I always do to these bikes is throw my Vortex ECU on it. This one in particular has a tune from Twisted Developments. They're one of the most respected and trusted engine building companies in the industry. Tons of factory teams, satellite teams, tons of privateers, and just a countless number of like fast amateur guys get their stuff done by Twisted Developments, and I've been personally getting my stuff done by them for like 6 years. So I really trust these guys. They always do a fantastic job, and today we are going to find out just how fantastic of a job they do. I always say that an ECU is the biggest upgrade you can do for any bike, whether it's stock, modified, 250, 450. Not to mention, they're relatively cheap and super easy to put on your bike. It's not like you're paying for any labor to tear the engine apart and put a cam or a rod or something like that in. You literally just take the seat off, unplug the old one, and plug this in. Of course, we're gonna wait to do that because we're heading to the track and we wanna run this thing in completely stock form for a session just to show you guys the difference, so that when I go ahead and put this on for session 2, you guys can kind of hear and feel the difference in the helmet cam footage. As I said, I have my old Vortex that I had them tune, but they'll actually go ahead and tune your stock ECU as well. I know the Vortex can be a little bit pricey, but their stock ECU tune is also great, so that'll save some money. But yeah, I always notice a huge difference when I put a tuned ECU on this thing, and hopefully I'll notice it even more on the gas because if you guys are familiar with the Austrian bikes, the gas is the only one that does not come with the mapping switch installed, and this thing is programmed to just stay in the less aggressive mapping from factory. So I've essentially been riding this in the mellow map this entire time. I always noticed a big difference on my KTMs when I would go from an aggressive stock map to the tuned Vortex ECU. So I'm thinking that, you know, going from the stock mellow map to the tuned ECU is going to be an even bigger difference, and I'm really excited to try it out. Even got that crisp Twisted Developments hat. I think that only adds about 1 horsepower, so you guys may be disappointed to hear that. But yeah, guys, super excited to try this out. So I'm going to load up and head to the track. Session 1 stock ECU, we'll swap that thing between sessions. Session 2 Vortex, and then probably every time you see me riding this bike from now on will be with the Vortex ECU. So yeah, let's go get it. All right, session 1 stock ECU, let's get it. This track is super high speed as well, so I think if I'm going to notice this anywhere, it's going to be here. The track itself might be faster than this first one, but we're not really looking at lap times. We're kind of just looking at, you know, how it sounds and how it looks coming out of corners and whatnot. If I pull in, it's just to adjust my bars.
You got a wrench? You go back there.
This is the true POV.
Trying to film right now?
Yep.
Want me to hold it?
Nope. It's alright, guys, I got it. Oh. Oh, that sounds way better. Let's go. Starts a lot easier, that's for sure.
All right, guys, so We tested the ECUs out on the course. Now let's talk about them in the race shop. And yeah, for me, the difference is completely noticeable from the first crack of the throttle. I mean, you guys saw even just starting the bike, like it starts up a lot quicker. So I guess if you're doing like dead engine starts, like a GNCC or something, that would help you there. Or maybe if you stall it out on the track, you know, firing it up could be a little bit easier too, because that definitely happens. But yeah, I mean, with the twisted Vortex, you can tell immediately that the stock gas tune is definitely not meant for like a high level of racing. And for some people, that's probably okay. 450s are super fast, but for me, since I am racing pro nationals, the way I was describing it to my dad and other people at the track is, since I got the gas, the power band is really good, but it almost feels like the clutch is slipping a little bit. It has some really good hit right off the bottom. Like, I feel like it's nice and throaty. As soon as I get on the power, like if I'm second gear coming out of turn, it feels good. But when second gear starts to get into that mid and high RPMs, like right as I'm wanting to shift to third, it feels like it just starts winding out, almost like it's too lean or something. And it feels like it's electronically inhibiting you from really like getting into a crazy amount of speed. Like just when I want that meaty hit to get in there and like that mid and high RPM range, it just feels like the clutch is slipping, or kind of how I've been describing it is it feels like there's a little bit of like traction control built into the stock gas tune. I'm pretty sure there's not, but that's just what it feels like. Anytime I've ever ridden a traction control tune, that's sort of the feeling that I get. Hits good off the bottom, but when that wheel speed starts to get really high, it just feels like it's trying to stop you from really digging your claws in and getting going a gnarly speed. And so a track like we went to today, where it's a lot of clawing your way out of kind of sandy corners and getting up to a high speed, this was like the perfect track to test the ECU, because it made a massive difference accelerating out of those turns and getting up to a high rate of speed down those long straights. I could feel it immediately. Like I said, the first corner that I accelerated out of in that second session, I could tell a big difference. And apart from that, I wasn't expecting to actually be able to hear it in the helmet cams, but honestly, going back and watching the footage, yeah, I mean, you can tell, like you can hear how much of a difference that it made, and you can kind of hear that it just like winds out and falls flat on its face in that mid and high RPM with the stock tune. And with the twisted Vortex, the thing just pulls like crazy. Like it sounds so much throatier in that mid to high RPM range in second gear. And actually where I noticed it big time was the short shoots, where with the stock tune, and you know, every time I've ridden this bike previously, I would kind of be wondering, like on this little straightaway I'll put up on the screen right now, I'd want to come into the right-hander before it in second gear, because second pulled a lot better out of the corner. But then there would just be like 20 feet at the end of the straightaway where I'd think to myself, shifting to third, you know, might be a little bit quicker, but then I'd immediately have to shut it back down for the corner and shift back down to second. And then the other part of me was like, maybe I could come into that right-hander in third and sort of give up a little bit of that grunt coming out of the turn. But then maybe that would pay dividends at the end of the straightaway. You know, if I feathered the clutch enough, maybe I'd be able to carry a little bit more speed than if I left it in second gear. And there have been a lot of situations like that on every track that I've been to so far on the gas. And those are the situations where not only does second gear pull even harder with the twisted tune, but it pulls a lot longer, and shifting to third wasn't even a thought in my head in this little short straightaway here, because second gear just wasn't even wound out yet. And watching the footage back, I feel like these little short shoots are where you can really notice the acceleration and the speed difference coming into the next corner. Like you can obviously hear it, but I think even if you muted both clips, you can just like visibly see and feel the more speed that I'm carrying into these corners. And I mean, yeah, going 65 miles an hour down the long straights is nice, but really the spots where you make up time are these really technical low speed sections, because increasing your fastest mile an hour on the track down the long straights isn't nearly as impactful as raising your lowest mile an hour in these tight areas. So I think that's really where the twisted tune pays dividends. Of course, everybody also wants to know the lap times, so I went ahead and took lap times from the first session, which I'll put over here, And then from the second session, I'll put over here. Like I said earlier in the video, lap times are always like a really tough one because the track is changing. I mean, even lap to lap, the track could change an entire second. There's other riders on the track that I've got to, you know, battle with and go around. And, you know, maybe for session 1, I'm not quite as warmed up as session 2, but pretty much for the most part, the track is the fastest it's ever going to be at the very beginning of the day, and it's just going to slowly get slower and slower. And normally when I do these tests, obviously it makes sense to try the stock part first and then put the modified part on because the stock part is already on the bike. The modified part is what I'm going to leave on the bike, so it just makes sense to do it in that order. And so a lot of the time, the lap time comparison is not like ultra different, or sometimes I'm even slower in the second session simply because the track has broken down and people are like, oh bro, it didn't even help you that much. So I never like to do it solely based on lap times, but it is very motivating to see that even though it was the second session, I was still quite a bit, like significantly faster every single lap with the Vortex. Of course, there's always gonna be those people out there that are like, bro, how much did Twisted pay you to go slower with the stock ECU? And I'm like, dude, you're out of your minds. Twisted didn't pay me to make an advertisement for them. I'm just out here trying to make my bike as fast as it can be and drop my lap time as much as possible because I've got to race against Eli Tomac, you know what I mean? And on top of that, you guys obviously probably noticed that Jerry Lorenz, number 47 on the KTM, is out there. And I mean, me and Jerry are like, you know, arch rivals, good friends, but we never want to be slower than each other every time we're at the track. And so honestly, when I see Jerry or anyone else like that out on the track, I completely forget that I even have a camera on or that I'm filming a video. I have one thing on my mind, and it is trying to catch or pull away from them as fast as absolutely possible. So that first session, we had Jerry right in front of us, and trust me, I was pushing as hard as I absolutely could. And then when I put the Twisted ECU on, he was right behind me. So again, I was pushing as hard as I absolutely could. So choose to believe it or not, but that's the reality of it. And yeah, I'm very, very stoked on it. So before you guys go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on tearing your engine apart and upgrading the internals, maybe look at something as simple as just an ECU tune. You know, start there, and if you still want some more, then maybe rip into the engine. But I'm telling you, man, this is enough for me as a professional racer. I really think that it's going to be enough for pretty much anyone else out there. Thank you guys very much for tuning into this video. Thank you to Twisted Developments for always supporting me and showing some love. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later, guys.